Deadpool and Wolverine have joined the MCU at a bit of a low point, but it's no surprise to see how well it's doing at the box office. Now, I for one am not one to jump on the MCU's post-Endgame hate wagon, primarily because Marvel's released a few projects during this era that I actually really like. But that being said, I'm not going to steer away from the topic of Marvel's steady decline in both the quality of their films and box office numbers, especially when this movie mentions it themselves. But enough of that shit. Let's get into this fucking Deadpool and Wolverine review. So I watched Deadpool and Wolverine opening weekend, hell, opening day for that matter, and I had such a good time. It's really refreshing to see audiences getting excited for a big Marvel premiere again. When I was in the theater, I remember thinking to myself that this was the first MCU film that I was seeing opening day in a long time. And I feel like that's the case for most people, which is kind of fucked because I remember a time where there were literally lineups outside of theaters to see the next MCU film. But I guess we all know why lately this hasn't been the case. So besides this film featuring Ryan Reynolds returning as Deadpool since Deadpool 2 in 2018, and Hugh Jackman returning as Wolverine since Logan in 2017, it also features many other characters I didn't even think I'd see. Marvel had me in the theater almost every scene like, woo! Let's go. And a major part of this film is the cameos. It's what's gonna bring in audiences and be the talk of the movie for, well, I don't know, people still talk about. As well as the crazy cameo fest in Deadpool and Wolverine, we also had a lot of variants of both Deadpool and Logan throughout the movie. Now, I'm not comically educated on who these characters actually are, but through my research I've grown a greater appreciation for them. It's good to see the MCU going back to the source material, especially after learning that so many of the filmmakers of Phase 4 have expressed not reading the comics, which I thought was pretty fucking weird. But here we have a return to the good stuff, a return to the X-Men origins, I might say, and it feels like it. It feels like a comic book movie, and I find that superhero movies nowadays excel best when they aren't afraid to do the bright costumes instead of the slick, real-world, generic kind. It's no surprise to me that this movie was gonna be funny. I found the last two Deadpool films fucking hilarious with their explicit sexual humor, fourth wall breaking, and many curse words. But going into it, I guess I didn't realize how funny it was going to be, and boy was it hilarious. They had my whole theater laughing every scene, hey, almost every line, no joke, no cap. And this is where the Deadpool franchise really shines, because the humor is so unique and fearless in nature and a complete stranger to the kind of quippy humor we've gotten from the MCU films. And I can confidently say that it comes across as fearless as a whole. I mean, you got Wade joking about not having a lot of vaginal sex, to joking about the Oscar slap. And I'm Canadian, so when my man said,
"Get my country's name out of your fucking mouth,"
I could hear people clapping and cheering. And I work at Cineplex, so this joke had the same reaction all times around. Now, I've heard people talk about how this movie has a lot of cringe humor, or that it makes a lot of gay jokes, but I think this movie has the best humor out of the three because of how well integrated the humor is into Deadpool's character. It does something different that other superhero films have been fucking up, where every character has the same witty, sarcastic, comedic approach. And honestly, I was wondering how Deadpool, a fourth wall breaking superhero, was gonna fit into the MCU, but I think they did a pretty good job. And a large part of this had to do with Ryan Reynolds, which brings us to my next point. After Logan came out, a lot of people wondered what was next for the X-Men universe, as Hugh Jackman was seen as the face of that franchise for like the whole thing, but he was making cameos or starring in every film. After Logan died, I saw a ton of different fan-made castings of a new Wolverine. But I guess what Marvel realized was that no one was ready for no Wolverine recasting. That and none of the motherfuckers could bring in $1 billion box office like Hugh Jackman. Like the decision to bring back RDJ into the MCU, Marvel has brought back Hugh, and this time into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Now, I've heard a lot of people say Logan's arc or backstory in this film is lacking and not interesting enough. enough. And where that's concerned, I kind of agree. I mean, it's one thing if it was just a Deadpool movie featuring Wolverine, but his damn name is in the title. I feel like they could have gone with a darker Logan backstory because of how much of the film centers around him. I mean, it's not like bringing in 2 other Spider-Men in the 3rd act of your film and having one of them confess to going down a dark road where he might have killed people. This is the co-lead of the freaking movie. I just felt like we could have gotten more from this character. Even in Logan, we hear about how Charles fucking Xavier murked the entirety of the X-Men. And while I don't believe some sort of redemption arc for Logan would necessarily fix his character in this film, it did feel like the consequences of Logan just dipping on his friends when he needed help was shallow. Now that being said, there is nothing I didn't like about Jackman's performance. As with most of his roles, he seamlessly becomes the character. A lot of the emotionally driven scenes in this film are carried by him, and his chemistry with Ryan Reynolds created the perfect buddy comedy. Hugh was meant to play the Wolverine as Reynolds was meant to play Deadpool. And when I saw an interview where Ryan talked about how he loved working with Hugh and they've been very close since meeting each other in 2008, I thought to myself that this is what drives the story. This is the heart of Deadpool and Wolverine. The relationship these two characters have with each other is genuine, it's funny, and it works. Like most people said, I didn't really care for the villain that much in this story, even though Emma Corrin's performance was really good. I don't know if it's the fact that I don't like telepathic characters amongst mutants with physically based powers because of how overpowered they are and how they don't really kill the characters as fast as they should because the plot doesn't allow them to. Yeah, that's probably it. But I don't know, for some reason I really thought a Magneto variant was gonna be a villain in this movie, but I mean, Logan's never really been able to face off against him, so that'd propose a problem. Anyway, I fucking loved Chris Evans returning as the Human Torch, and though I thought to myself this would be a good idea for the multiverse saga of the MCU, I didn't think we'd be getting it this soon. Blade, Elektra, and Gambit coming in was also pretty cool as well. I love these bizarre team-ups that work even if the audience didn't ask for them. And no, that doesn't include the random ass Illuminati shit we got in Doctor Strange. You know, when none of the characters were in the same room, but filmed separately. When John Krasinski was casted as Mr. Fantastic and gave us false hope for a Fantastic Four movie. When a Captain America variant went up against a wish that could literally bend reality. Anyway, I felt like Laura or X-23 was underused in this film. For how much she was a part of the plot in Logan, and even giving a strong reference to that movie earlier, really made me confused on why Daphne Keane had so little screen time. I just feel like her character could have done more besides being a part of the end battle and getting Magneto's helmet. And though I love how she brings out Logan's backstory a bit more and we get a deeper look into his character, I really do think that she could have been a part of the overall plot a bit more. I've also heard people say that the original characters from the Deadpool franchise, like Colossus and Negasonic Teenage Warhead, not even really being a part of this story was weird because of the contribution in the other two films. But I thought that was fine, to be honest, because of how much I didn't really care for them in those films. I mean, to me it's kind of funny how they only appear in the first and last act of each film, and Deadpool only really calls on them for the climactic battle for both of these movies. I honestly think that the writers could have worked in some way to have this reoccur in all 3 movies. It'd really give that concluding feel to the franchise. But I get why they didn't do it. At the end of the day, this movie's about Deadpool and Wolverine just fucking shit up. And I can at least appreciate that the creators made that clear, because it's really easy to fuck this up and lose yourself in such a vast story that includes this many characters. But what I like about this movie is that it knows what it's doing. It doesn't hold on a character for too long, and that, if nothing else, is respectable. When I first heard that Deadpool and Wolverine was going to be rated R, I was so excited. And beyond the profanity or vulgarness of the first 2 films, what I was really excited for was the gore. And boy, is there a lot of fucking gore. This is without a doubt the most violent and bloody Deadpool film, and that is made clear within the first 5 minutes. We get this great creative action sequence where Poole uses Logan's adamantium corpse to kill a squad of TVA soldiers, and it's so satisfying. And that is the case with most of the action in this film, especially the fights where Poole and Logan square off, and this moment is fucking sick. I love how this Wolverine has a different fighting style than what we've seen, and even if the CGI is not the greatest during these parts, it doesn't make it unenjoyable to watch. The sound design is incredible, the hits are impactful, and the choreography is also great as well. I've always loved Deadpool's fighting style and how it's cool yet comedic at the same time. He uses literally anything he can as a weapon, and he has a wide range of them. One thing I will talk about on this channel is how much I love battle sequences, and in this case, I thought it was so cool how we essentially get 2 battles back to back. I mean, I love it. It's especially great to see Marvel giving audiences what they want again after them pretty much saying, we know you didn't ask or care about these characters, but here you go, and replacing boring generic action sequences with actual cool fight scenes and applaudable moments. I strongly believe that music in movies is one of the most important parts of a film. And that's not just because I listen to scores like there's no tomorrow. I think a great score can actually build up a film in a lot of ways. I mean, it's what brings me back to a movie I like, and it helps it stay relevant. Some of my favorite movies are also my favorite scores, and it can actually make you like the movie even more. And it's a shame that a lot of moviegoers don't actually have an ear for it. But I do believe that's changing because of social media. I mean, just look at how popular Portals from Avengers Endgame and Can You Hear the Music from Oppenheimer was when they came out. Now, initially, I actually didn't give the score of this movie a whole lot of recognition until someone brought it up, or I listened to it on Apple Music. And I find that is sometimes the case with some films. There are scores that are greater on their own, and great scores that are best listened to during the actual movie. But in Deadpool and Wolverine, composer Rob Simonson actually did both, and he's composed one of my favorite scores of all time for The Whale. Where I think the score really shines is the amount of different sounds used. There's a very heroic main theme for Deadpool, Marco Beltrami's sad piano theme for Logan, a sick-ass bass theme that reoccurs throughout the film and is especially vibrant when Blade comes in, Alan Silverstreet's Avengers theme, and others. I just need to watch the film again. But it's really cool to hear so many different sounds come together in one film, and some themes that I actually really liked return again. And let's not forget the soundtrack, because the bizarre music choices for the Deadpool soundtrack as a whole is another thing that's so canon. It shouldn't work on paper, but it fucking does, and I love that. There are even songs that I didn't really like or care for, but now I do because of this movie. And I like when composers take existing songs and cinematically orchestrate them to be more epic and intense, and that is definitely the case during the climax with Madonna's Like a Prayer. Like with some of these, I remember thinking at first, oh, that song, well, that's kinda odd. But then later I'm on Ox like, okay, got my friends saying, what are we listening to? And I'm like, chill bro, it's from Deadpool 3. And for the love of God, I cannot get bye 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 out of my head.
I don't like uncomfortable silences.
What are you doing?
I wish I could. But hey, I think it still works. I really like how this movie looks. The marketing techniques for Deadpool have always been good, but the first Deadpool actually looks pretty colorless, and though I think it fits for that movie, every film actually gets a bit more colorful. And yes, I do know the MCU loves its color, and now being a part of the MCU, Deadpool and Wolverine get new suits that just explode with color. And I also think this is what makes the movie so satisfying to watch. And I will say that about most of the costumes in this film. They look good. I think a lot of people were getting tired of all the MCU character costumes looking the same with the colorful modern, and why the Avengers movies worked because of how different everyone looked from each other. I believe superhero movies work the best when the filmmakers are actually creative in designing what they look like, and when they pull from the source material. Now going forward, I really hope Marvel takes this into consideration, instead of just making every character look the same out of laziness, lack of creativity, money. Nah, they got the money. Deadpool and Wolverine is one of the better MCU movies, and definitely because of where it came into it. And what does this mean going forward? And when will we see these characters again? Well, probably in the next Avengers movies, and that's fine, because the mutant era has been established. As well as introducing these characters into the MCU, we also got to say goodbye to the characters that existed in the Fox era, and this is a pretty cool love letter to Fox and Disney fans alike. I really like how this is acknowledged in the film, and that this actually feels like a turning point for the MCU as a whole. Now, while I don't believe this means that the MCU is back on track, I do believe that with the release of this project, we're headed in the right direction. And we've already seen a drastic change in how Marvel is going about the release of their projects, and acknowledge that they've been fucking up. It really shows how Marvel does care about their fans to some degree, and how a major corporation can take accountability for producing bad projects. And this is also respectable. Now, though Deadpool and Wolverine is not one of the greatest MCU films, and may not even be in the top 10, it still does do something that a lot of the recent MCU films have been failing to do. You know, make the audience laugh, applaud, pay to see the movie, care.
It has given us a chance.
To do what?
To give a shit.
I really hope Marvel doesn't just keep throwing in random characters though, for no reason, because that would be desperate as fuck. But if the MCU can take constructive criticism from its audiences and use it to do better, if these movies can continue to be self-aware, if it can get MCU films with awesome action sequences, soundtracks, costumes, acting, and creative storytelling, then I can believe we can get some sort of rise in the quality of the MCU as a whole. And it may not be the climactic endgame finale that we all want, but it can still be special. Marvel needed Deadpool and Wolverine because it was fun, it was funny, it gave us a reason to return to the theater, and it's the major motion picture event that all MCU movies should be.